Jersey Nightly News is made possible in part by a grant from First Jersey Securities.
I'm Kent Manahan. In the news, a toxic time bomb. Large quantities of the chemical dioxin have been discovered in the ironbound section of Newark. We'll have a complete report. Motorists may yet have the option of getting their cars inspected at private garages. And the Essex County prosecutor says a Belleville company illegally discharged dangerous chemicals into the town's sewer system. Governor Kane this afternoon said dangerous levels of the deadly chemical dioxin have been found in a closed plant facility in Newark. Dioxin is the same chemical that earlier this year prompted the evacuation of the city of Times Beach, Missouri, and the levels found in Newark are equal to those at Times Beach. Larry Stoopnagle is back from the governor's press conference, and he has this report. Larry?
Thank you, Kent. The site is at 80 Lister Avenue near the PASSAIC River. There are homes within 300 yards of the contamination, and Governor Kane has given the people in those homes the option of seeking temporary shelter.
I've ordered plans made to provide alternative housing for approximately 75 to 100 residents at 25 homes located within 300 yards of the facility. I want to emphasize there is no reason to suspect that these people are in any danger whatsoever. This step is being taken purely as a precautionary measure to provide maximum health protection. Further, a health screening program will be made available to those residents also, and that is a further precaution.
The contamination was discovered yesterday after tests at the Marisol plant revealed dioxin contamination hundreds of times above what are considered safe levels. The plant was formerly used to manufacture herbicides. Dioxin is a byproduct of herbicides. Governor Kane has ordered the closing of a nearby regional food distribution center. The Department of Health says food from the center is safe for consumption if it is washed first. The Department of Environmental Protection will test the soil near the center tomorrow, and the nearby homes will also be tested for dioxin contamination. Results from the test should be back early next week.
I want to emphasize that the steps I've just outlined are precautionary. There is at this point no solid evidence to indicate that dioxin contamination has spread beyond the site in question.
Authorities have blocked off the contaminated site, and the state is ready to evacuate nearby residents, but they've been told they can stay in their homes. Right now, plans are being made for stabilizing the site, but the results of tomorrow's test will be needed before anyone knows how big a job that will be. Kent?
Thank you, Larry. Those closest to the source of the dioxin contamination run the greatest health risks. The area of immediate concern, Newark's Ironbound neighborhood, which is heavily industrial. It's cluttered with chemical and paint factories, but there are pockets of dwellings and a few neighborhood businesses. The people who live and work here are, of course, concerned about today's news, but they seem to be taking it all in stride.
I've been here 16 years. Once in a while we get a smell from one of the factories, but that's just, you know, but nothing other than that.
No incidents that I know of anybody being sick.
My heart is pounding right now, but what can I say? I have a 14-year-old dog. Hopefully that we've been living with it and it isn't going to make us critically ill immediately.
I've been told that it's 18 years since the company they're claiming caused this problem has moved out of here. So I don't have a problem as far as, I never realized this problem existed until just today.
As I said, my heart is pounding, and I wonder maybe that's part of my extreme anxiety for the past few years. Real extreme anxiety.
To continue our coverage of the Newark situation, we have Commissioners Robert Huey of the Department of Environmental Protection and Dr. Richard Goldstein of the Health Department with us live here in Trenton to discuss the situation. Commissioner Huey, let's start with you. Large quantities of dioxin have been found in Newark, and the location is right near the PASSAIC River. Is it possible that the river itself has become contaminated? And just before we went on the air, you mentioned that it's almost impossible to dispose of the dioxin. How will you dispose of the substance?
Well, I think that's a two-part question. Is it possible that some of it is in the river? We think yes, but the answer to that question at this point awaits further testing. We have started the testing right on site, and the counts that we have, which are in a very preliminary fashion at this time, indicate that we have a problem on the site. We've made arrangements with EPA beginning tomorrow to do some additional testing in concentric circles out from the site itself, concentrating at first on residences which are closest and some of the businesses which are adjacent. And then as we get into a further sampling, which will probably include at least 200 samples in the next month or so, we'll be looking at circles stretching into the water. We'll be testing fish. So anything is possible. But right now, every count that we have in a preliminary fashion is on the site itself.
And what about the disposal of this material? You did say that there's no way to dispose of it.
Dioxin has been a problem nationally in that there are very few places, if any, that will dispose of it. And one of the things that has held up any movement at Times Beach, which has been referred to today at least, is that there is no place to take the materials. But there are ways to secure the materials. And I think what we're dealing here with is a 15-year-old soil contamination problem. And it is very likely that we can work out a security system to retain it there so that it doesn't extend to other parts in the neighborhood.
Dr. Goldstein, the area has been evacuated. I understand it's a volunteer evacuation. Can you tell us about that very briefly, and is it possible that that could spread to other areas of Newark?
First of all, it's a precautionary evacuation, and it is totally optional. Because we are going to continue to do testing in the area, we have advised the residents in that area that they have the option of going to off-site housing. There's absolutely no indication at this point in time that the areas in which they live is contaminated.
Now, the closing of the nearby fruit distribution center, how is this chemical spread through the air, through the water? How does it affect people, and why was the fruit stand, the fruit distribution center, closed down? You mentioned washing these fruits before using them.
Right. This is an important point, and that is that the dioxin is spread as a particulate. It is not spread as a gas, as an odor, which can creep into anything. It is generally found in soil. When the soil dries out, it turns into dust. It can be taken up by the wind and moved across the street. It can also get into the water in a similar fashion. But it is a particulate matter, and so it is not as invasive, if you will, as a gas.
And just how dangerous is it? What is the outcome of cancer? What happens?
Well, there's very little known. It is referred to as the #1 toxic chemical in America, but this is as a result of animal studies. There have been about 20 industrial exposures, and from that we have rather limited information. However, there is a sense that over a long-term period, cancer would be a risk, as well as various neurological sequelae.
Commissioner Huey, I'd like to clear up one point. We've been hearing, this story has been breaking around us all afternoon, and we've heard reports, and we said in our report that this is as dangerous as the situation at Times Beach, Missouri. Some reports have said 12 times as dangerous. What is the real situation here? Is that a possibility?
I think on site we have preliminary readings that would be in the same neighborhood as Times Beach. So not in excess, but in the same neighborhood. But it is not as dangerous a site primarily because we have a localized problem. We have a problem on the site. Times Beach had a problem in that they actually had residents living on an old contamination site. So those counts were exactly where people were living. I think they just evacuated a trailer park, which was located exactly on top of the spoils area. We don't have that situation to our knowledge here.
Just very briefly, can you tell me when will we know more? How will you be giving out information? How will you be keeping the people of New Jersey up to date on this situation? Everyone is concerned and wants to know more.
We've taken some steps today. We're going to have an office between myself and Health and Roosevelt Homes up in Newark starting tomorrow. EPA is beginning the test on the residence homes tomorrow that are in the local area, and we will have those tests back by a prior agreement with EPA on Tuesday of next week. In addition to that, the food processing plant center is being relocated, and we've already made arrangements with the Port Authority to locate it next to the Port Authority administrative offices beginning tomorrow morning. And Rick and I are going to be up there in the neighborhood tonight as soon as we're done with this show.
Our reports have said that this situation, Dr. Goldstein, could have been going on for some 15 years, that the dioxin could have been present at the location for that length of time. Why did it take so long to find it? It's been there. What has been going on in the city of Newark? Why hasn't the health department been in there to locate this?
Well, we haven't had any particular complaints that would have led us to this site.
Until this anonymous letter hit the...
No, it wasn't an anonymous letter. I think that we clarified that a little bit in the press conference today. we've been locating, and I think probably better than any other state, all the sites in the state. We just released a 4-year master plan based on 133 sites of 233 that we've identified. We're now in the process of looking at sites that have a historical possibility from manufacturing histories, and this is one of those sites. So
our time is up, and we could continue this conversation for the next 20 minutes, the rest of the news program. Thank you, Commissioner Huey, for being with us, and Commissioner Goldstein. We'll be back with more news in just a moment. The Assembly Judiciary Committee switched gears today and said motorists in heavily populated areas should be able to have their cars inspected in private garages, at least temporarily. The action follows predictions of long lines at state inspection stations as a result of a federal court order. Rita Shade has the story.
The Democratic-controlled committee said no to the governor's plan to permanently allow motorists the option of using private garages for annual inspections. But a compromise was offered. The dual system could be used as a temporary aspirin for those urban inspection stations that will be deluged by long lines beginning July 1st. Garages now licensed as re-inspection stations would be able to perform annual checks, that is, if they have the proper emissions equipment. The head of the Division of Motor Vehicles said re-inspection stations can be used, but he's not pleased.
There is no guarantee that anything here will pass. It's only a recommendation. There's no guarantee that the funding will be available in future years, and I think that's a shame because 3 or 4 or 5 years, I think you're going to be back again here with the same problem.
The committee issued its recommendations in a report that Republicans said smacked of politics. The report is just the initial legislative hurdle, and it promises to start another round-robin of court battles. The public advocate and the New Jersey Environmental Lobby said they will go back to court if the state tries to implement the dual system without proper federal approval or public hearings. Use of re-inspection stations would terminate at the end of October. Democrats said they have a pledge from their leadership to put $6.9 million in the budget for upgraded services and more inspectors. Republicans are dubious.
I don't want to get any mail, and I've told the members in the chamber, and I'll tell the public, I don't want to see suddenly $6.9 million spring from heaven and then get mail from people who have children that are blind in a state institution that's being closed down, or somebody's going to be thrown out of an institution of higher education because the funds have been cut to fund this program.
Kern said he will lobby for a referendum on the November ballot, asking voters if they would like the option of using private garages for annual inspections. His proposal was included in the committee report. In Trenton, I'm Rita Shade.
The operators of the Oyster Creek nuclear power plant face a $40,000 fine for violating federal security requirements. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission staff recommended that fine today against General Public Utilities Corporation of Parsippany. During a routine check at Oyster Creek in March, an NRC inspector found the alarm system and portions of the barriers around the plant did not meet federal standards designed to keep out intruders. A GPU spokesman says the company took corrective measures right away. The utility now has 30 days to pay the fine or request it to be reduced or withdrawn. Essex County Prosecutor George Schneider said today he'll seek indictments against a Belleville manufacturing company that allegedly dumped dangerous chemicals into the town sewer system. Some leaky drums focused attention on that chemical plant a couple of weeks ago, but state environmental officials and the county prosecutor's office now believe the problem runs much deeper. Sandra King reports.
It was just 2 days ago that Governor Kane put on a safety suit, entered the plant, and promised that today the state DEP would have some hard answers. But today's only answers came instead from the Essex County prosecutor.
DEP reported to me today that as a result of their samples taken on May 13th of 1983 at the site showed that there was a illegal dumping situation existing within the building of the Research Inorganic Chemical Company.
The chemicals dumped, according to Schneider, have still not been identified in a precise way, but they are in what he called the acetone family. He said that means a dangerously low flash point in a highly acidic and corrosive chemical. And tests conducted more than 2 weeks ago, just before the plant was ordered closed, show the dumping started in a foot-wide inside sewer, one that led into Belleville's public sewer system. But there was no conclusive finding on what that or the leakage might mean to the health of this plant's neighbors.
Although we have sufficient proof to present to a grand jury that a hazardous situation was created and that it was done recklessly and it created a wide risk of injury, some degree of injury to people, we cannot say whether or not it's related to any of the discomfort or the injuries that these people are complaining of presently.
So Schneider's decision to take the case to a grand jury may not in fact answer the question being asked in Belleville, whether the health of residents was affected by the plant, but it does confirm at least two of their suspicions, that illegal dumping was going on there and that the chemicals in question were, at least potentially, a health threat. In Newark, I'm Sandra King.
And late today, the township attorney said that while he's satisfied with today's action, there is one other question that Belleville wants answered. Will the state pick up the tab for cleanup at the plant? They say good Republicans aren't supposed to fight other Republicans. Well, just who's a good Republican is the issue in the 34th Legislative District. And that's an area of PASSAIC and Essex counties where the incumbent GOP senator was dumped by the party regulars. Now he and an incumbent assemblyman are locking horns to win the GOP nod in the June 7th primary. Bob Shapiro reports.
Republicans in Clifton, Wayne, and North and West Caldwell are used to seeing the incumbent senator having to wear out shoe leather in a primary. But Senator Joseph Bubba says it's not Republican voters who forced him to go door-to-door. It's Passaic County GOP Chief ROCCO MOTTA, a man Bubba calls an old-style political boss.
He wants commitments out of me that gubernatorial appointments, with respect to senatorial courtesy, gubernatorial appointments will be designated by him, that judges will be designated by him, that prosecutors will be designated by him.
Joseph Bubba has an ego that's second to none. I think it's as wide and deep as the Atlantic Ocean. And I don't think his word is worth very much. It wasn't to most of us.
Just who's lied to whom is an issue Terry LaCourte would like to avoid. He's the one who's actually running against Bubba, and he's trying to portray himself as being above all the name-calling. LaCourte is an incumbent assemblyman approved by MOTTA's Passaic County Republican organization. He agrees with Bubba that the real issue here is who's the real Republican. And he says that Bubba has not been following the GOP line.
I think on certain major issues regarding supporting Governor Kane on some of the major issues coming up. I think the infrastructure bank, an issue that we've disagreed on as far as is an insurance reform.
Bubba agrees that he hasn't always backed Governor Kane, but he says his first concern is the people in his district.
My bills center on crime, help to the senior citizens, education, and veterans' rights.
LaCourte has the backing of the Passaic County Republicans, but Bubba has the support of every town organization in the district, with the exception of LaCourte's hometown, Clifton. Bubba also has a full line of candidates running with him, and if he wins big, it could be LaCourte and MOTTA who find themselves on the outside looking in. In Clifton, I'm Bob Shapiro.
The state public advocate and two environmental groups say the Department of Environmental Protection is not doing its job, and they're going to court to prove their point, that recent DEP rules governing pesticide use are not strong enough to protect the public. We have more from Dan Hodgson.
One of the major criticisms of the new regulations is that whether the spraying is being done throughout the community or just by your next-door neighbor. If you want to be notified before it happens in order to get children or pets out of the area, you have to specifically ask your local government to let you know.
It puts the burden of notification, if you want exact notification, on the person who wants to be notified. And if you happen to misreading the paper that day or you miss the legal notice, then you don't know that it's
And it's just in the legal section.
Yeah, it's very small.
The Coalition Against Toxics believes public notification in the newspaper's legal section is practically worthless since very few people read it. The DEP's new regulations also say that notification can be made up to 2 months before the spraying is actually done, and the notice does not need to give the exact date. Critics also point out that even if a person does see the notification, it is not required to say anything about the potential health hazards of the specific pesticide. In addition, if someone's going to spray less than 3 acres in your neighborhood, there's no requirement to give you any warning at all.
Environmentalists want notification of spraying to be done by first-class mail or personal visit, as was required under a 60-year-old state law that's no longer in effect. They say there's already evidence of numerous instances in this year's spraying where people have suffered adverse health effects due to spraying done when they were not aware it was coming. The pesticide industry and the State Department of Agriculture, however, respond that spraying is not generally done to the extent that it would cause any health problems. Since the issue is now in litigation, Department of Environmental Protection officials said they couldn't answer any of our questions about the notification rules or the reasoning behind them, and it's not likely any of these questions will be answered anytime soon. The issue is not even expected to get into court until long after this year's spraying season is over. In Evesham Township, I'm Dan Hodgson.
And now here's a look at the weather forecast. Tonight it will be clear to partly cloudy and cool with temperatures in the low to mid 60s in most areas. Tomorrow cloudy again with showers developing later in the afternoon. Temperatures will range from the low to mid 60s in the north, the mid to upper 60s in central and southern areas. And the outlook for Saturday, cloudy and warm with a few showers possible. Time now for sports. Pat Scanlon sitting in for Bill Perry. Pat.
Okay, Ken, thank you. The Transatlantic Challenge Cup Series continues tonight at Giant Stadium as the Cosmos host Sao Paulo. The Cosmos won the opening game of the three-game round-robin tournament over Fiorentina. Sao Paulo is coming off a 4-2 loss to Seattle. Now, 6 players from the Brazilian national team are now with Sao Paulo, including Renato, an attacking midfielder, and Zé Sergio, a speedy left winger. 2 former Cosmos play for this high-scoring club, Mourinho, who will play tonight, and Oscar, who is injured. Now here's a look at the Transatlantic Challenge Cup standings. The Cosmos 1-0 undefeated. Seattle is 1-1 after losing to Fiorentina 1-0 last night. The Italian club Fiorentina also 1-1, and Sao Paulo is 0-1. Sunday it winds up at Giant Stadium when Fiorentina hosts Sao Paulo and the Cosmos play Seattle. The NHL will meet in Montreal next week for the annual draft and to decide on the fate of the St. Louis Blues franchise. Both subjects are important to the New Jersey Devils. Now, the Ralston Purina Company wants to sell the Blues. The NHL blocked the sale, and now the matter is in the courts. One possible outcome, the team could be disbanded. Now, if that happens, the Devils would get the 3rd pick of a special draft of St. Louis players, sort of a going-out-of-business draft. Now, as for the regular entry draft for amateurs, the Devils traded their pick to the Islanders last year, but do have the 6th pick of the first round in this draft. Now, by finishing 19th out of 22 teams, the Devils improved on the ice, hurt the Islanders in the amateur draft, and hurt themselves if the Blues fold, as Max McNabb explains.
We fought and scratched, of course, to get up to 19. We didn't want the Islanders to get the very first draft pick this year.
Because they have your pick.
Yes. So now in drafting 3rd, if in fact the St. Louis Blues, as we know them now, if that franchise dissolves and the league goes into comes up with a system whereby the players are dispersed around the league, it will hurt us to a degree there. But still, the 3rd man on a team that 2 years ago got 108 points should be a pretty good player.
Meanwhile, today the Devils released their first ever highlight film entitled It's Only the Beginning, an enjoyable 21-minute feature. The film takes you inside the Devils' locker room for some pregame situations and also features some on-ice comments by the always quotable goalie, Chico Resch.
Not hitting gets heavy like that. I know it's telling you to call penalty, but you know, that's good hitting, eh? Good hitting. Yeah. Good hitting. I love that. Yeah.
Now, if you or your group would like to show the Devils 83 highlight film, write New Jersey Devils, Brendan Byrne Arena, P.O. Box 504, East Rutherford, New Jersey, the zip code 07073. Bad news for the Montclair State Indians from the Division III College Baseball World Series in Marietta, Ohio. Montclair lost to California Stanislaus today by a 6-5 score, 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th after the Indians had taken the lead 5-4 in the top of the 9th, send Montclair State into the losers bracket. It's a double elimination tournament. Now the Indians will play the loser of the Marietta Otterbein game tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And that's our sportscast. Kent?
Thank you, Pat. Repeating our top story tonight, the deadly chemical dioxin has been found in the soil at a closed manufacturing plant in Newark. As a precaution, Governor Kane is ordering alternate housing for residents of the 25 homes within 300 yards of that plant site. But the governor says at the same time there's no reason to believe these people are in any actual health danger. That's our news for this Thursday night. For Pat Scanlon and the rest of the Nightly News team, I'm Kent Manahan wishing you a good night.
New Jersey Nightly News is made possible in part by grants from the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation and Fidelity Union Bank Corporation, with 115 offices serving the banking needs of New Jersey. New Jersey Nightly News is a production of the New Jersey Network in association with WNJT 13. The program is broadcast weeknights at 6:30 on Channel 13 and at 7:30 on the New Jersey Network. There is a repeat broadcast at 10 p.m. on the New Jersey Network and at 7 o'clock the following morning on Channel 13. Portions recorded.